The freezing river swallowed Vivian Blake's luxury sedan in less than 30 seconds. Ethan Carter had maybe 10 before the current dragged her under forever. He didn't think about his daughter waiting at home. He didn't think about the stranger who'd called him a backwards hick just yesterday. He thought about one thing. Nobody dies on his watch. Not today. Not ever again. If you want to know how a billionaire CEO ended up drowning in rural Kansas and why the man who hated her jumped in anyway, stay with me until the end. And hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Ethan Carter learned to hate Mondays long before his wife died. Now, 3 years after her funeral, Mondays just felt empty. Not painful anymore, just hollow, like drinking coffee that had gone cold without you noticing. He stood at the kitchen counter at 6:47 a.m., watching his daughter Lily drag her backpack across the floor, one strap trailing behind her like a broken wing. "It's too heavy," she announced. "It's the same weight as Friday." Friday was a million years ago. Citrusé. Ethan smiled despite himself. Lily had his late wife's timing, that way of saying something ridiculous right when he needed it most. She was 6 now, brown hair always escaping whatever ponytail he attempted, freckles scattered across her nose like someone had flicked a paintbrush at her face. "You want me to carry it to the truck?" he asked. "I'm not a baby. Didn't say you were." She huffed, grabbed both straps, and hoisted the bag onto her shoulders with the dramatic effort of someone climbing Everest. Ethan handed her a granola bar, and she took it without looking at him, already thinking about whatever first graders thought about on Monday mornings. He used to have Mondays that mattered. Conference rooms in Chicago, presentations that determined whether products launched or died, a salary that made his college friends jealous and his father proud. Then Sarah got sick, and suddenly none of it mattered at all. The meetings continued without him. The products launched. The company didn't collapse just because Ethan Carter stopped showing up. Turned out he was replaceable. So he'd taken Sarah's life insurance money, bought 40 acres in rural Kansas, and built the kind of life where Mondays meant feeding chickens and fixing fence posts instead of answering emails from people who pretended to care about synergy. "Dad? Yeah? Can we get a dog? We've got chickens. Chickens are boring. Chickens give us eggs. Dogs give us love, Luxie," Lily said, like she'd been practicing the line. Ethan shook his head, grabbing his keys off the counter. "We'll talk about it." "That means no." "That means we'll talk about it." She rolled her eyes, something she'd learned from a second grader named Becca, who Ethan already didn't like, and headed for the door. He followed her out into the kind of autumn morning that made Kansas worth living in. Cold enough to need a jacket, warm enough that the sun felt good on your face. The kind of morning where nothing bad was supposed to happen. The truck started on the second try. Ethan made a mental note to replace the battery before winter hit, then promptly forgot about it because Lily started singing some song from a cartoon he'd never heard of. She had a terrible voice, completely tone deaf. He loved listening to her anyway. The road into town was narrow, winding through farmland that hadn't changed in 50 years. Ethan knew every pothole, every bad curve, every place where deer liked to jump out at dawn. He drove it on autopilot, listening to Lily's off-key performance, thinking about whether he needed to pick up groceries after drop-off. Then a black Mercedes came screaming around the bend, doing at least 60. Ethan jerked the wheel right, tires skidding on gravel as the sedan flew past so close he could see the shock on the driver's face. His truck lurched onto the shoulder, stopped 2 feet from the ditch. Lily's song cut off mid-word. "What was that?" Her voice was small now. Ethan's hands were shaking on the wheel. "Some idiot who doesn't know how to drive." He sat there for a moment, heart hammering, watching the Mercedes disappear around another curve way too fast. Out-of-state plates, probably some lost tourist trying to find the highway. He wanted to chase them down, wanted to explain exactly what happens when you drive like that on country roads. Wanted to, "Dad? Are we going?" He forced himself to breathe. "Yeah, we're going." Oh. He pulled back onto the road carefully, checking his mirrors twice. Lily went back to singing, quieter now, like the near miss had turned down her volume. Ethan's jaw stayed clenched all the way to school. Imak. The elementary school parking lot was chaos. It was always chaos. Parents who couldn't figure out the drop-off line, kids running between cars, That one mom who always parked in the fire lane and pretended not to notice the principal glaring at her. Ethan pulled into his usual spot and turned to Lily. You good? Can I have lunch money?
You've got lunch money. Extra lunch money. For chocolate milk. You don't need chocolate milk. Becca gets chocolate milk every day. Becca's not my kid. Lily gave him a look that was pure Sarah. Disappointment mixed with affection, like she loved him but also thought he was being unreasonable. He pulled $2 from his wallet and handed them over. Just today, he said. Thanks, Dad. She kissed his cheek, grabbed her too heavy backpack, and bolted toward the building before he could change his mind. Ethan watched her go, weaving through the crowd of kids like she'd done it 1,000 times. Because she had. This was her world now, small-town Kansas, one elementary school, everybody knowing everybody. Nothing like the childhood he'd planned for her back when he'd imagined private schools and piano lessons and college funds that doubled every year. But she seemed happy. That had to count for something. He was about to pull out when he saw the Mercedes, same black sedan, same out-of-state plates, parked crooked across 2 spaces like the lines were suggestions. A woman stood beside it, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing with her free hand in a way that screamed important conversation. Ethan told himself to leave. Told himself it didn't matter. Told himself that getting into an argument with a stranger in an elementary school parking lot was exactly the kind of thing Sarah would have talked him out of. He got out of the truck anyway. She didn't notice him approaching. Too focused on whoever she was tearing apart over the phone. Don't care what the board thinks, Marcus. We're not pushing the launch back again. If they can't handle a minor PR issue, maybe they shouldn't be on the board. She was probably 30, dressed like she'd walked out of a business magazine. Designer suit, heels that had no business being worn on gravel, dark hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. Pretty in that intimidating way that made men stupid. Ethan wasn't feeling stupid. He was feeling angry. Excuse me, he said. She held up one finger without looking at him. I need to go, Marcus. Fix it. She ended the call and finally turned to face him. Her expression was the kind of polite annoyance people use on customer service workers. Can I help you? You almost killed me and my daughter about 10 minutes ago. That got her attention. She blinked, processing. I'm sorry? Black Mercedes, narrow road. Driving like you're on a highway instead of farmland. Recognition flickered across her face. Oh, that was you. Yeah, that was me. I didn't hit you. You came close enough. She had the audacity to look at her phone, checking the time like this conversation was cutting into her schedule. Look, I apologize if I startled you, but I'm in a hurry. I have an important meeting in. I don't care about your meeting. Now she looked at him properly. Really looked. And Ethan saw the exact moment she decided he wasn't worth her time. I said I apologize. What else do you want? I want you to slow down before you kill somebody. I was going the speed limit. The speed limit here is 45. You were doing at least 60. I really don't have time for this. She turned back toward her car. Ethan stepped into her path, not threatening, just enough to make her stop. These roads aren't built for speed, he said, keeping his voice level. They're old, narrow, lots of blind curves. There are farms all through here, tractors, kids on bikes, people who've lived here their whole lives and know better than to drive like maniacs. She stared at him like he'd started speaking another language. Are you always this dramatic about traffic? Are you always this careless about other people's lives? Something flashed in her eyes. Anger, maybe, or surprise that someone had the nerve to push back. I have been driving for 15 years without a single accident. I think I can handle a country road. Confidence isn't the same as skill. And small-town paranoia isn't the same as wisdom. Ethan felt his hands curl into fists, forced them to relax. What's your name? Why? Because when you crash into someone, I want to know who to mention. She smiled and it wasn't friendly. Vivian Blake, and I'm not going to crash. Vivian Blake, he repeated. You here visiting someone? Business meeting. In a town with 3,000 people? It's called expansion. Well, she said, like he was too simple to understand the concept. Not that it's any of your concern. Oh, Mako. It became my concern when you almost put my truck in a ditch. Almost doesn't count. Tell that to my 6-year-old when she's scared to get in a car again. Vivian's expression flickered, just for a second, something that might have been guilt. But then her phone rang, and the moment was gone. She glanced at the screen. I really have to go. So go. Just slow down. Right? She opened her car door, paused, looked back at him. For what it's worth, I'm glad you and your daughter are fine. But maybe teach her that overreacting to near misses isn't healthy. Before Ethan could respond, she was in the Mercedes, engine purring to life. She backed out of the space, still too fast, and drove toward the exit with the same careless speed she'd had on the road. Ethan stood there in the parking lot, jaw tight, watching her disappear. Arrogant city trash, he muttered. Then he got back in his truck and tried to forget about Vivian Blake entirely. He almost succeeded. The rest of Monday unfolded normally. Feed the chickens. Repair the broken fence post he'd been ignoring for a week. Run into town for groceries and get stuck in a conversation with Mrs. Patterson about her grandson's college scholarship. Pick up Lily from school and listen to her explain in exhaustive detail why Becca's chocolate milk tasted better than regular milk. By the time dinner was over and Lily was asleep, Ethan had nearly forgotten the woman in the Mercedes. Then Tuesday morning arrived. Ethan was walking back from the henhouse, carrying eggs in a basket Sarah had bought at some craft fair years ago, when he heard the engine. He looked up and saw the black Mercedes coming down his driveway, moving slow this time, almost cautious. It stopped near his porch. The door opened. Vivian Blake stepped out, wearing jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than his truck. She saw him and stopped. You've got to be kidding me, Ethan said. I didn't know this was your property. What are you doing here? She held up a folder. I'm looking at land for development. This area was flagged as potential. She stopped, staring at the house behind him. Wait, you own this? All 40 acres. Vivian looked around, at the farmhouse, the barn, the chickens wandering near the fence. When she turned back to Ethan, her expression was different, calculating. Are you interested in selling? No. I haven't made an offer yet. Mus, don't care. Not selling. This is prime development land. You could... I said no. She studied him for a long moment. You don't even know what I'm offering. Doesn't matter. This is my home. It's 40 acres of underutilized farmland. It's where I'm raising my daughter. Vivian opened her mouth to argue, then seemed to think better of it. She closed the folder. Fine. Do you know who owns the property to the east? Jim Hendricks. And before you ask, he won't sell either. Nobody around here will. Everyone has a price. Not everyone. She smiled, and this time it was almost genuine. You really believe that? Yeah, I do. How quaint. Ethan felt his temper rising again. This woman had nearly killed him yesterday, showed up uninvited on his property today, and now she was mocking him for not wanting to sell his home to whatever soulless corporation she represented. You should leave, he said quietly. I'm going. She turned back toward the Mercedes, then paused. For what it's worth, I am sorry about yesterday. I wasn't paying attention to the road like I should have been. It wasn't much of an apology, but it was something. Just drive slower, Ethan said. I will. She got in the car and backed out carefully, like she was proving a point. Ethan watched her go, then carried his eggs inside and tried not to think about how expensive her sweater had looked. What? Wednesday was quiet. No Mercedes. No unexpected visitors. Just Ethan and 40 acres and the comfortable routine he'd built. Thursday morning, everything changed. Ethan was driving back from the hardware store, new battery for the truck, finally, when he saw the crowd gathered near Old Miller Bridge. The bridge was barely used anymore, too narrow for modern vehicles scheduled for replacement whenever the county got around to it. But it was the fastest route between the main road and the northern properties, so people still cut across it. Ethan slowed down as he approached. There were maybe a dozen people standing on the bank, all staring at the river. Sheriff Morrison's cruiser sat at an angle, lights flashing. Ethan's stomach dropped. He pulled over and got out. Jerry Hoskins, who owned the gas station in town, saw him coming. Ethan, you here? Hear what?
Car went through the bridge about 20 minutes ago, right through the damn railing.
Ethan looked towards the river. The current was strong this time of year, fed by autumn rain. If someone had gone in... Who was it? He asked. Don't know. Somebody said it was a black Mercedes.
Ethan started running before Jerry finished the sentence.
He pushed through the crowd, ignoring people calling his name, focused only on the river. Sheriff Morrison was on his radio, calling for a dive team. The bridge railing was shattered,
Wood and metal hanging at wrong angles.
fresh tire tracks led straight to the gap. Sheriff, Ethan shouted. Morrison turned. Ethan, stay back. We've got... How long ago? What?
How long since it went in? Maybe 15, 20 minutes. Dive team's 30 minutes out, and with this current,
Ethan didn't wait to hear the rest. He kicked off his boots and dove. The water hit him like a fist. Cold. Jesus, it was cold. And moving fast enough to knock him sideways. He fought against it, diving deeper, eyes burning as he searched the murky water. Nothing. His lungs started to burn. He surfaced, gasped air, dove again. This time he saw it. A dark shape 10 feet down, wedged against a fallen tree. The Mercedes. He kicked harder, fighting the current, grabbed the door handle and pulled. Locked. He surfaced again, pulled in air, went back down. The driver's side window was cracked but not broken. He could see her inside, slumped against the steering wheel. Vivian Blake, unconscious or dead, he couldn't tell. Ethan braced his feet against the tree and yanked on the door with everything he had. It didn't budge. He tried the window, slamming his elbow against the glass. Nothing. His vision started to blur, lungs screaming. He needed air. He surfaced one more time, heard voices shouting from the bank. Someone was telling him to wait for the dive team. Someone else was yelling about the current being too strong. Ethan ignored them all and went back down. This time he found a rock, softball-sized, heavy enough. He positioned himself, smashed it against the window. The glass spiderwebbed, but held. He hit it again. Again. The window shattered. Water rushed into the car. Ethan reached through, fumbling for the seatbelt. Found it. Pressed the release. It didn't budge. His vision was going dark at the edges. Oxygen deprivation. He had maybe 10 seconds left. He pulled out his pocket knife. Thank God he'd forgotten to take it out after fixing the fence, and sawed through the seatbelt. It gave. He grabbed Vivian under the arms and pulled. She moved. Ethan kicked off the tree, dragging her with him, letting the current help now instead of fighting it. They tumbled through the water, Vivian's dead weight threatening to pull him under. His head broke the surface. He gasped, pulled her up, started swimming for the bank. Hands reached for them. Jerry and Morrison and 2 other men he didn't recognize, all pulling them onto dry land. Someone wrapped a blanket around him. Someone else started CPR on Vivian. Ethan collapsed onto the grass, coughing water, shaking so hard his teeth rattled. She breathing? He managed to ask. Morrison looked up from where he was doing chest compressions. Not yet.
Come on, Ethan whispered. Come on, damn it.
Morrison kept going. 15 compressions, 2 breaths, 15 more. Vivian's body jerked. She coughed, water spilling from her mouth, then gasped in a breath that sounded like it hurt. Ethan closed his eyes and let his head fall back against the ground. Ambulance is 2 minutes out, someone said. Ethan didn't respond. He just lay there, cold and exhausted and alive, listening to Vivian Blake cough herself back to consciousness on the riverbank. They took her to County General. Ethan refused the ambulance for himself. Hypothermia watch, Morrison said, but he'd be fine once he warmed up. Jerry drove him home. Lily was still at school. Ethan stood under a hot shower for 20 minutes, then sat at the kitchen table in dry clothes, staring at nothing. He kept seeing her slumped against the steering wheel, kept feeling the seatbelt resist the knife, kept wondering what would have happened if he'd surfaced for air one more time instead of grabbing that rock. His phone rang. Morrison. She's stable, the sheriff said without preamble. Conscious.
Asking for you. Why?
Says she wants to thank you.
You saved her life, Ethan. I just did what anyone would do. Most people would have waited for the dive team.
Ethan didn't respond. Morrison sighed. She's in room 214. Visiting hours go till 8. I'm not going. Ethan, she's alive. That's enough. He hung up before Morrison could argue. But sitting alone in his kitchen, watching the clock tick toward the time he needed to pick up Lily,
Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the moment he'd pulled Vivian from the car. The weight of her. The terrifying stillness. The way her first breath had sounded like resurrection. He'd done it. He'd actually done it. And he had no idea what happened next. Lily found out about the rescue from Becca's mom. Ethan had planned to tell her himself, carefully, without the dramatic details. But small towns didn't work that way. By the time he picked her up from school, half the parents in the parking lot were staring at him like he'd grown a second head. Lily came running out of the building, backpack bouncing, and grabbed his hand. "Dad, Mrs. Chen said you jumped in the river." Ethan shot a look at Mrs. Chen, who had the decency to look embarrassed. "I was going to tell you at home. Is it true?" "Yeah, it's true." Lily's eyes went wide. "Did someone fall in?" "Someone drove off the bridge. I helped get them out." "Was it scary?" Ethan unlocked the truck. "A little." "Were you scared you were going to die?" Lily, Becca said her mom said you almost drowned." Becca's mom talks too much," Ethan muttered. He lifted Lily into the passenger seat and buckled her in, aware of the other parents still watching. "I'm fine. The person I pulled out is fine. Everything's fine." "Who was it?" Ethan hesitated. "Just someone passing through town." "Do they live here now?" "No." "Are they going to say thank you?" "I don't know, Lily." She studied his face with that unnerving perception 6-year-olds sometimes had. "You look tired." "I am tired. Okay, can we have pizza for dinner?" The subject change was so abrupt that Ethan almost laughed. "Yeah, we can have pizza." "With extra cheese?" "With extra cheese." Lily smiled, satisfied, and started talking about something that happened at recess. Ethan drove home listening to her chatter, grateful that she was too young to understand how close he'd come to not making it out of that river. They ate pizza on this couch. Lily fell asleep halfway through a movie about talking animals. Ethan carried her to bed, tucked her in, and stood in her doorway for a long moment watching her breathe. Then he went back downstairs and tried not to think about Vivian Blake lying in a hospital bed 2 towns over. He lasted until Friday morning. Morrison called at 7, while Ethan was making breakfast. "She's being discharged today." "Okay." "Ethan, she's been asking for you every day." "Yes." "I've been busy." "Doing what? Avoiding gratitude?" Ethan cracked an egg into the pan harder than necessary. "I don't need her gratitude. Maybe she needs to give it. That's not my problem." Morrison was quiet for a moment. "You know what Sarah would say about this." "Don't." "She'd say you're being stubborn for no good reason." "Morrison, just think about it. That's all I'm asking." He hung up before Ethan could argue. Ethan stood at the stove, watching eggs sizzle, trying not to hear Sarah's voice in his head telling him Morrison was right. He dropped Lily at school, drove past the turnoff for County General, kept going toward home. Made it 3 miles before he turned around. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. Ethan stopped at the nurse's station, suddenly aware that he had no idea what he was going to say. "I'm here to see Vivian Blake." The nurse, middle-aged, kind eyes, smiled. "Room 214, she'll be happy to see you." Ethan doubted that. He walked down the hallway, passing rooms where people slept or watched television or stared at walls. Room 214 was at the end. The door was half open. He knocked anyway. "Come in." Vivian was sitting up in bed, dressed in street clothes, looking pale but alive. Her dark hair was loose around her shoulders. No makeup, no designer suit. She looked younger like this, vulnerable. She saw him and something crossed her face. Relief, maybe, or surprise. "You came." "Morrison said you were asking for me. Every day." She gestured to the chair beside the bed. "Sit." Ethan stayed standing. "You look better. I feel like I drowned and then got hit by a truck. But the doctors say I'll live." She paused. "Because of you. Anyone would have done it." The sheriff said most people would have waited for the dive team. "Morrison talks too much." "What?" A smile flickered across her face. "Apparently that's a common problem around here." Ethan didn't smile back. "What happened? On the bridge?" The smile disappeared. "I was distracted. Phone call. I didn't realize how narrow it was until..." She stopped, shaking her head. "I hit the railing. Everything happened so fast. The car went through and then I was underwater and I couldn't. Her voice caught. I couldn't get out. The door was locked. Automatic locks. They engaged when I hit the water. She looked at her hands. I thought I was going to die in there. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. He pushed it down. But you didn't. No, I didn't. She looked up at him, and her eyes were too bright. You saved my life, Ethan. You remember my name. I remember everything about you, including the fact that I was incredibly rude when we met. You were driving like an idiot. I was. She took a shaky breath. I'm sorry. For all of it. The road, your property, the things I said. You were right, and I was arrogant? I was going to say wrong, but arrogant works too. Ethan finally sat down. The chair was uncomfortable, designed for short visits. Why were you on that bridge? Taking a shortcut. The GPS said it would save 10 minutes. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. 10 minutes. That's what almost killed me. You should have listened when I told you to slow down. I should have listened to a lot of things. She met his eyes. Thank you. I know you don't want to hear it, but I need to say it. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for... Her voice broke. Thank you for risking your life for someone you had every reason to hate. I don't hate you. You should. I almost killed you and your daughter. Then I showed up at your house trying to buy your land. Then I... You made mistakes, Ethan said quietly. People do that. Vivian stared at him. You're serious? Yeah. I could have gotten your daughter killed and you're just, what, forgiving me? I'm saying everyone deserves a second chance. She looked away, blinking hard. I don't know what to do with that. You don't have to do anything with it. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, a cart rattled past. Someone laughed in a nearby room. I want to repay you, Vivian said finally. No, Ukot. Ethan, I don't want your money. It's not about money. I need to do something, please. Ethan stood up. You want to do something? Drive carefully. Pay attention to the road. Don't die in some preventable accident. That's enough. He was halfway to the door when she spoke again. What if I can't? He turned back. Can't what? Yeti. Forget this. You. What you did. Her hands were gripping the blanket. I've spent 15 years building a company, making money, winning deals. And in all that time, no one has ever just... She stopped, struggling for words. No one has ever saved me without wanting something in return. Maybe you've been around the wrong people. Maybe I have. Ethan looked at her, this woman who'd nearly run him off the road, who'd insulted his life, who'd almost died because she couldn't slow down long enough to see where she was going. She looked lost sitting there in that hospital bed, like someone who'd just realized the map she'd been following was leading nowhere. Go home, Ms. Blakiston, he said quietly. Back to Chicago. Back to your company. Forget about Kansas and bridges and whatever it is you think you owe me. What if I don't want to forget? Then that's your problem, not mine. He left before she could respond. The drive home took 30 minutes. Ethan spent all of it trying not to feel guilty about walking away from a woman who just thanked him for saving her life. He almost succeeded. Saturday morning arrived with rain. Ethan spent it fixing the leak in the barn roof he'd been ignoring since August. Lily spent it drawing pictures at the kitchen table, mostly horses, some with wings for reasons she couldn't explain. Sunday was church for the people who went to church, which Ethan didn't anymore. Instead, he took Lily fishing at the creek behind their property. She caught 2 sunfish and made him throw them both back because they looked sad. Monday, Ethan drove Lily to school and returned to find a black Mercedes parked in his driveway. For a moment, he just sat in his truck staring at it. Then he got out, walked up to his porch, and found Vivian Blake sitting on his steps holding a casserole dish. She stood up when she saw him. Before you say anything, I know I should have called first. Yeah, you should have. I brought food. I can see that. Chicken parmesan. The nurse at the hospital said everyone in small towns brings food when something happens. So I thought... She stopped, looking uncertain in a way he'd never seen before. I thought maybe I should too. Ethan crossed his arms. You didn't make that. No, I had a restaurant make it, but I picked it up myself. Ms. Blake. Vivian, please. Vivian, he said carefully. What are you doing here? I don't know. It was such an honest answer that Ethan didn't know how to respond. He stood there on his porch, watching this billionaire CEO hold a casserole dish like a peace offering, and tried to figure out what the hell was happening. You're supposed to be in Chicago, he said finally. I took time off. For what? Recovery. The doctor said I needed rest. You can rest in Chicago. I tried. She looked down at the casserole. I couldn't stop thinking about this place. About you. About what happened. That's called trauma. It'll pass. What if I don't want it to pass? Ethan felt something shift in his chest. A warning, maybe. A recognition. He'd seen this before. The way people latched onto their rescuers, confused gratitude for something deeper. Sarah had warned him about it once, years ago, when he'd pulled a kid from a frozen pond. You should go, he said quietly. Vivian's face fell. Right. Of course. I'm sorry for bothering you. She set the casserole on the porch steps and turned to leave. Made it 3 steps before Ethan's conscience caught up with his common sense. Wait. She stopped. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. You came all this way. Least I can do is be civil about it. You don't have to. Come inside. I'll make coffee. Vivian turned back slowly, like she thought he might change his mind. Are you sure? No, but come on anyway. His house was clean but cluttered in the way houses with kids always were. Lily's drawings covered the fridge, shoes piled by the door, a basket of laundry waiting to be folded on the couch. Vivian took it all in without comment. She set the casserole on the counter while Ethan started the coffee maker. How old is your daughter? She asked. 6. What's her name? Lily. That's pretty. Yeah. Vivian sat at the kitchen table, looking out of place in her expensive clothes. Ethan poured 2 mugs of coffee and brought them over. Cream? Sugar? Black is fine. They sat in awkward silence. Vivian wrapped her hands around the mug like she was cold. Outside, rain drummed against the windows. I like your house, she said finally. It's small. It's comfortable. It feels... She paused, searching for the word. Lived in. That's one way to put it. I meant it as a compliment. Ethan studied her over his coffee. Why are you really here, Vivian? She was quiet for a long moment. I told you, I can't stop thinking about this place. You almost died here, and I know. That should make me want to leave and never come back, but it doesn't. She met his eyes. When I woke up in that hospital, the first thing I remembered was your face. You pulled me out of that car like my life mattered more than yours, and I still can't understand why. Because it did matter. You didn't know me. Didn't have to. Most people wouldn't have jumped in. Then most people are cowards. Vivian laughed, surprised, genuine. You really believe that? Yeah, I do. She shook her head slowly. You're not like anyone I've ever met. I'm just a guy who lives on a farm. You're a guy who risks his life for strangers. That's not nothing. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. He drank his coffee and wished he'd never answered the door. My company is worth $3 billion, Vivian said suddenly. I have 200 employees, offices in 4 countries. I've been on magazine covers, given keynote speeches, made deals that changed entire industries. She paused. And none of it felt as important as watching you dive into that river. Vivian's, I'm not trying to make this weird. I'm just trying to explain why I'm here, why I can't let this go. She took a breath. For 15 years, I've built my entire life around success, around winning, and then I almost died, and the person who saved me didn't want anything from me. Didn't care about my money or my company or my connections, just saved me. Because that's who you are. You're making me sound like a hero. You are a hero. I'm a single dad who feeds chickens for a living. Yeah. You're both. Ethan set down his mug. You're going to be disappointed. What? When you figure out I'm not whoever you think I am, When you realize I'm just some guy who got lucky pulling you out of that car before the current took us both. You're going to be disappointed. Vivian leaned forward. Try me. I left my career because I couldn't handle watching my wife die slowly. I bought this farm because I was running away from everything that reminded me of her. I barely keep this place together. Half the equipment is broken. The barn roof leaks. I can't afford to hire help, so I do everything myself, and most of it's done wrong. He felt the words pouring out now, unstoppable. He felt I make my daughter eat frozen pizza twice a week because I'm too tired to cook real food. I can't remember the last time I went on a date. I go entire days without talking to another adult. That's who I am. That's the hero you're thanking. Vivian didn't flinch. Okay. Okay? You asked me to try you. I'm trying. She held his gaze. You're a widower raising a daughter alone on a farm you're barely keeping together. And you still jumped in a river to save someone you'd only met once. That makes you more impressive, not less. You don't know what you're talking about. Maybe not. But I know what I saw in that water. Her voice softened. You didn't hesitate, not for a second. You saw someone drowning and you jumped in. That's not luck. That's character. Ethan looked away, uncomfortable with the admiration in her voice. You should go. I will. Can I ask you something first? What? Can I come back? He stared at her. Why would you want to? Because being here feels different than being anywhere else. Because talking to you is the first real conversation I've had in months. Because, she stopped, laughing at herself. Because I don't have a good reason, and I'm asking anyway. You have a company to run. I have a COO who's been begging for more responsibility. He can handle things for a while. Vivian, I'm not asking to move in. I'm just asking if I can visit. Maybe bring more food that I didn't make. Maybe meet your daughter. Maybe just exist here for a little while without being a CEO or a billionaire or anything except a person who almost died and wants to remember what it feels like to be alive. Ethan should have said no. Should have told her that gratitude wasn't a foundation for friendship. Should have recognized the warning signs of someone transferring trauma into attachment. Instead, he heard himself say, once a week. Vivian blinked. What? You can visit once a week, Sunday afternoons. That's when Lily and I usually do something together anyway. You're serious. I'm serious. But ground rules, no business talk, no trying to buy my land, no expensive gifts. And if Lily tells you to leave, you leave. No questions asked. Deal. Vivian smiled and it transformed her whole face. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You haven't met Lily. Is she like you? Worse. She asks more questions. Vivian stood up, carrying her empty mug to the sink. I should go. Let you get back to your day. Ethan walked her to the door. The rain had stopped, leaving everything wet and green and smelling like earth. Sunday? Vivian said. What time? 2:00. I'll be here. She walked to her car, moving carefully like she was still sore. Ethan watched her go, wondering what the hell he'd just agreed to. The Mercedes pulled away slowly this time, cautiously, like she'd finally learned her lesson about country roads. Ethan went back inside and stared at the chicken parmesan sitting on his counter. This is a mistake, he said to the empty kitchen. But Sunday afternoon, when Vivian showed up exactly at 2:00 carrying a box of cookies and wearing jeans that probably cost more than his truck, Lily opened the door and said, Are you the lady my dad saved? Boy! Vivian knelt down to her level. I am. My name is Vivian. I'm Lily. Did you really almost drown? Lily, Ethan started. It's okay, Vivian said. She looked at Lily seriously. Yes, I did. Your dad jumped in the river and pulled me out. Were you scared? Very scared. Was my dad scared? I don't know. He'd have to tell you. Lily turned to Ethan. Were you scared, Dad? Yeah, Ethan admitted. I was. But you did it anyway? Yeah, Lily looked back at Vivian. My dad is really brave. He is, Vivian agreed. The bravest person I've ever met. Lily studied her for a moment longer, then made a decision. Do you want to see my room? I would love to see your room. It has a lot of drawings and some stuffed animals and a nightlight that looks like a moon. That sounds amazing. Lily grabbed Vivian's hand and pulled her toward the stairs. Vivian glanced back at Ethan, looking surprised and delighted and completely out of her depth. Ethan followed them up, listening to Lily chatter about her stuffed animal collection. Vivian asked questions like she actually cared about the answers. By the time they reached Lily's room, his daughter was explaining the entire plot of the talking animal movie she'd fallen asleep watching. And then the bear learns that friendship is more important than honey, Lily concluded. That's a good lesson, Vivian said seriously. Do you have friends? I have colleagues, people I work with. That's not the same. Vivian looked startled. No, I guess it's not. My dad says real friends are people who like you even when you're grumpy. Your dad is very wise. Lily beamed. I know. They spent an hour in Lily's room. Vivian admired every drawing, asked about every stuffed animal, and listened to Lily's explanation of why horses with wings made more sense than regular horses. Ethan sat on the floor watching this billionaire CEO sit cross-legged on his daughter's rug, completely focused on a 6-year-old's rambling stories. Do you want to go to the creek? Lily asked suddenly. What's at the creek? Fish and frogs, and sometimes turtles, but they're shy. Vivian looked at Ethan. Is that okay? If you want to get your expensive jeans muddy, sure. I don't care about the jeans. Lily grabbed her hand again. Come on. They walked down to the creek behind the house, following the narrow path Ethan had worn down over 3 years of fishing trips. Lily ran ahead, pointing out interesting rocks and trees and the spot where she'd seen a deer last week. Vivian walked beside Ethan, careful on the uneven ground. She's wonderful. She's exhausting. Both things can be true. They reached the creek. Lily immediately started searching for frogs, crouched at the water's edge with the intense focus of a scientist. Does she know? Vivian asked quietly. About her mother? She knows Sarah died. She doesn't remember much about her. She was 3. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. That doesn't make it easier. Ethan looked at her. You sound like you know. Yeah. I lost my father when I was 12. Everyone kept saying it would get easier with time. She paused. They were wrong. It just gets different. Yeah, that's exactly it. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Lily hunt for frogs. She found one finally, tiny, green, perfect. She held it cupped in her hands and brought it over to show Vivian. His name is Herbert. How do you know it's a boy? Vivian asked. I just know. Fair enough. Hello, Herbert. The frog jumped. Lily squealed and laughed and ran back to the water to find another one. I haven't done this in years, Vivian said. What? Looked at frogs? Spent time just existing, not working, not networking, not thinking about the next deal or the next meeting. She watched Lily splash in the shallow water. Just being present. It's harder than it sounds. It shouldn't be, but it is. Vivian turned to him. Do you ever miss it? Your old life? Sometimes. Mostly I miss who I was when Sarah was alive. You're still that person. No, I'm someone different now. Better in some ways, worse in others. Honest, Vivian said. That's what you are. Is that a compliment? The highest one I know. Lily came running back, empty-handed this time, but grinning. The frogs are too fast today. Maybe they're not ready for visitors, Vivian suggested. Maybe. Lily looked up at her. Are you coming back next Sunday? Ishki. If your dad says it's okay. Dad? Ethan looked at his daughter's hopeful face, then at Vivian's careful expression, and knew he was already in deeper than he'd planned. Yeah, he said. She can come back, Lily cheered. Vivian smiled, and Ethan wondered when exactly he'd lost control of this situation. The next Sunday, Vivian showed up with art supplies. The Sunday after that, a kite that Lily immediately lost in a tree. The Sunday after that, ingredients for cookies they tried and failed to make together. Each visit lasted longer than the last. Each one felt a little less like obligation and a little more like something else.
Ethan told himself it was fine. Told himself Vivian was just grateful. Told himself that eventually she'd get bored of small-town life and country roads and Sunday afternoons with a single dad and his 6-year-old daughter. He was still telling himself that when Vivian showed up on a Wednesday. Ethan was in the barn trying to fix the tractor that had been dead since July. He heard the Mercedes and came out to find Vivian standing in his driveway looking nervous. "It's not Sunday," he said. "I know. I'm sorry. I needed to see you." Something in her voice made him put down the wrench. "What happened?" "Nothing. Everything." She ran a hand through her hair. "My COO called. The board wants me back in Chicago. There's a merger falling apart, and they need me to fix it. So go fix it." "I don't want to." Ethan stared at her. "What?" "I don't want to go back. I don't want to sit in conference rooms arguing about stock prices. I don't want to pretend I care about quarterly earnings. I don't—" She stopped, breathing hard. "I don't want to leave. Vivian, I know how this sounds. I know I'm probably just confused. Trauma or gratitude or whatever the psychology books call it. But I don't think that's what this is." She looked at him. "I think I'm happy here. Actually happy. For the first time in years." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "You barely know me. I know you jumped in a river for a stranger. I know you're raising your daughter alone and doing a damn good job. I know you make terrible coffee and your barn roof leaks and you fix things 3 times before they actually work. I know you don't care that I'm rich or successful or any of the things most people care about. I know." Her voice caught. "I know I feel more like myself in your kitchen than I do anywhere else. You have responsibilities. So do you. But you're here anyway. That's different. Is it?" They stood there in the late afternoon sun, and Ethan felt the ground shifting under his feet. This woman who'd nearly killed him, who'd insulted his life, who'd almost drowned in his river, she was looking at him like he'd hung the moon. And the terrifying part was that he wanted to look back the same way. "I can't be what you need," he said quietly. "You already are, fool. You don't know what you're saying." "Yes, I do." She stepped closer. "I know I'm supposed to go back to Chicago and forget about Kansas and move on with my life. But I can't. Because every time I try to picture my future, you're in it. You and Lily and this farm and Sunday afternoons by the creek. That's what I want. Not boardrooms or deals or money. Just this." Ethan's chest felt tight. "What about your company? What about it? It's your life's work." "No, it's 15 years of running away from anything real." She met his eyes. "You asked me why I was really here. That's why. Because you're real. This is real. And I'm tired of pretending that matters less than a quarterly report. Vivian, tell me you don't feel it too." See, he couldn't. Because standing there looking at her, remembering the weight of her in his arms as he pulled her from the river, remembering the sound of her laugh when Lily told terrible jokes, remembering the way she fit into his life like she'd always belonged there, he felt it. He felt all of it, and it terrified him. "You should go to Chicago," he said. "Handle your merger. Think about this when you're away from here. I don't need distance to know what I want. Maybe I do." That stopped her. She searched his face, and whatever she saw there made her nod slowly. "Okay, I'll go, but I'm coming back." "Vivian." "I'm coming back, Ethan. And when I do, we're going to have this conversation again. And maybe by then you'll be ready to admit you feel it too." She walked to her car, got in, drove away. Ethan stood in his driveway long after she was gone, feeling like something had fundamentally changed, and he had no idea how to change it back. That night Lily asked when Vivian was coming over again. "I don't know," Ethan said. "Is she mad at us?" "No, honey, she's not mad." "Then why isn't she coming?" "She has work to do in Chicago." Lily's face fell. "Is she coming back?" Ethan looked at his daughter and couldn't bring himself to lie. "I don't know, see," he said again. But 2 weeks later, on a Sunday afternoon at exactly 2 o'clock, a black Mercedes pulled into his driveway. Vivian got out carrying nothing this time, just herself. Lily ran to her. Vivian caught her, held her tight, and over Lily's head looked at Ethan with eyes that said everything words couldn't. She'd made her choice. Now he had to make his. Ethan watched Vivian hold his daughter and felt the last of his defenses crack. Lily pulled back, grinning. "You came back!" "I said I would." Dad said he didn't know if you were coming. Vivian glanced at Ethan. Your dad was being careful. That's smart. But you're here now. I'm here now. Lily grabbed her hand. Come on, I made new drawings. She dragged Vivian toward the house, chattering about crayons and construction paper and a horse she'd drawn that looked more like a dog. Ethan followed slowly, trying to organize thoughts that refused to stay organized. Inside, Lily spread her artwork across the kitchen table like evidence in a trial. Vivian examined each one with the same serious attention she probably gave quarterly reports. She asked questions, pointed out details. Made Lily laugh. Ethan made coffee he didn't want and tried not to notice how right this looked. Dad, Lily called, Vivian says she'll teach me to paint. Does she? Real painting, with brushes and canvases and everything. Ethan looked at Vivian. You paint? I used to, before... She stopped. Before I decided making money was more important than making art. Can she? Dad? Please? Mo? We'll see. Lily knew what that meant. She turned to Vivian. He always says we'll see when he means yes, but doesn't want to admit it. Good to know, Vivian said, smiling. Lily showed her 3 more drawings, then announced she was going to make a new one specifically for Vivian. She grabbed her crayons and disappeared into the living room, leaving them alone in the kitchen. The silence stretched. Ethan poured coffee he still didn't want. Vivian sat at the table, hands folded, waiting. How was Chicago? He asked finally. Exactly like I remembered. Loud, rushed, empty. Did you fix the merger? I let my COO handle it. He did fine. Ethan turned to look at her. You came all the way back here without finishing. I finished what mattered. The company doesn't need me hovering over every decision. Turns out I've been micromanaging for years because I was afraid to admit I'd built something that could run without me. That's supposed to be a good thing. That's supposed to be... It is. It's also terrifying. She accepted the coffee he handed her. Means I have to figure out who I am when I'm not CEO Vivian Blake. And who's that? I don't know yet. I was hoping you'd help me find out. Ethan sat down across from her. Vivian, I know what you're going to say, that I'm confused, that this is just gratitude or trauma or some psychological thing I'll get over, that I should go back to Chicago and my real life and stop pretending I can fit into yours. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What if you're wrong? What if I'm right? She took a sip of coffee, made a face. This is terrible. I know. Why do you keep making it? Because it's coffee and I need caffeine. Have you ever considered making good coffee? Have you ever considered that some of us don't have time to be coffee snobs? Vivian laughed, and the tension broke a little. There he is, the guy who's annoyed with me. I'm not annoyed. You're definitely annoyed. Fine, I'm a little annoyed. Why? Ethan set down his mug. Because you're making this complicated. I'm making it honest. Same thing. No, it's not. She leaned forward. Complicated would be me pretending I don't feel anything. Pretending these last few weeks didn't change everything. Pretending I can just go back to who I was before that bridge collapsed. Maybe you should try. I did try. For 2 weeks I sat in my office and took meetings and reviewed contracts and pretended everything was normal. And the whole time I was thinking about Lily's laugh, about the way you fix things that don't need to be fixed just because you like working with your hands, about how quiet it is here, how real. This isn't real, Ethan said. This is a break from your real life. What if it's the other way around? What if Chicago was the break and this is what's real? Oh, you don't believe that? I do. Her voice was quiet but steady. I spent 15 years building something I thought mattered. And then I almost died and you saved me and I realized none of it actually did. Not the way this does. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. You're going to regret this. Maybe, but I'd regret not trying more. You don't know me well enough to, I know you well enough to know you're scared. I know you well enough to see you shutting down every time I get close to saying what we're both thinking. I know. She stopped, took a breath. I know you lost your wife and you're terrified of letting someone else in. I get it. I'm not asking you to not be scared. I'm just asking you to be scared with me instead of alone. Lily came running back in, holding a drawing of 3 people standing in front of a house. Look, it's us. Ethan stared at the picture. Vivian was there, standing between him and Lily, all 3 of them holding hands. That's beautiful, honey, he managed. Vivian can keep it, so she remembers to come back. I don't need a picture to remember, Vivian said softly. Lily beamed and ran off again to start another masterpiece. Ethan picked up the drawing, studying the crooked house and stick figure family. She's getting attached. So am I. That's what worries me. Why? Because when you leave, I'm not leaving. It's going to hurt her. I'm not leaving, Ethan. He looked at her. You say that now. I mean it now, and I'll mean it tomorrow, and the day after that. She held his gaze. I'm not your wife. I'm not going to die and leave you alone. I'm here and I'm staying, and the only way I'm leaving is if you ask me to. Maybe I should. But you won't. How do you know, Kak? Because you're already planning next Sunday in your head. You're already thinking about whether Lily would like painting or if we should do something else. You're already making room for me even though you're pretending you're not. Ethan hated that she was right. Hated that he'd already thought about taking them to the old orchard next weekend. Hated that some part of him had started looking forward to Sundays in a way he hadn't looked forward to anything in years. This is a bad idea, he said. Probably. It's not going to work. Maybe not. You're going to get bored of small-town life and fixing fence posts and eating frozen pizza. I'm willing to risk it. I'm not good at this, at letting people in. I'm going to mess it up. So will I. She smiled. We'll mess it up together. Lily appeared in the doorway again. Are you guys arguing? No, they said simultaneously. It sounds like arguing. We're just talking, Ethan said. Loudly, Vivian added. Lily looked between them with 6-year-old wisdom. Becca's parents talk loudly too. Then they kiss and make up. Lily, I'm just saying. She disappeared again. Vivian was trying not to laugh. Ethan rubbed his face with both hands. Your daughter is terrifying, Vivian said. Tell me about it. She's also right. About what? About us arguing. We've been dancing around this for weeks. There's no this to dance around. Liar. Ethan stood up, needing to move. I can't do this right now. When can you do it? I don't know. Maybe never. Not good enough. It's going to have to be. He walked outside before she could respond. The afternoon was cool, autumn settling in properly now. In another month, there'd be frost. In 2, snow. He heard the door open behind him, didn't turn around. I'm going to keep coming back, Vivian said quietly. Every Sunday, every time you'll let me, until you believe I mean it. You're wasting your time. It's my time to waste. Vivian, I fell in love with you. The words came out rushed, like she'd been holding them back too long. I don't know when it happened. Maybe when you pulled me out of that car. Maybe when you let me into your home even though you had every reason not to. Maybe when I watched you with Lily and realized you're the kind of father I wish I'd had. But it happened, and I can't unfeel it, and I don't want to. Ethan turned around slowly. She was standing on the porch, arms wrapped around herself, looking terrified and determined in equal measure. You don't love me, he said. You love the idea of me. No, I love you, the real you. The guy who makes terrible coffee and can't fix a tractor and carries his daughter to bed when she falls asleep on the couch. The guy who's scared and stubborn and still jumps in rivers to save people he barely knows. That's who I love. You're going to get hurt. I'm already hurt. I hurt every day I'm not here. That's not love. That's what? Gratitude? Trauma bonding? Some psychological trick my brain is playing? She stepped off the porch. I thought that too. Spent 2 weeks in Chicago trying to convince myself that's all it was. But it's not. It's love. Messy and complicated and probably a terrible idea, but it's real. Ethan felt his carefully constructed walls crumbling. I'm not ready for this. I know. I'm probably never going to be ready. I know that too. Then why?
Because ready or not, I'm in love with you.
And I'd rather be here scared and messy and figuring it out than back in Chicago pretending I'm fine. She was close enough to touch now. Tell me you don't feel anything. Look me in the eye and tell me these last few weeks meant nothing and I'll leave. I'll go back to Chicago and never bother you again. He couldn't do it. Couldn't say the words that would make her leave. Because standing there looking at her, he realized she was right. He did feel it. Had been feeling it for weeks and pretending he wasn't. I can't, he said quietly. Can't what? Tell you I don't feel anything, because I do. And it scares the hell out of me.
Vivian's eyes got bright. Okay. That's it? Okay. You feel something. That's enough for now.
It's not enough. I'm a mess, Vivian. I wake up some mornings and forget Sarah's dead. I talk to Lily about her mother like she's coming back. I built this whole life around avoiding anything that might hurt again, and now you're here asking me to risk all of it. I'm not asking you to risk anything. I'm asking you to let yourself be happy. What if I don't remember how? Then I'll remind you. She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away. When he didn't, she took his hand. Every Sunday, every day you'll let me, until you believe you deserve it. Ethan looked down at their joined hands. Her fingers were smaller than his, softer. The hands of someone who'd never fixed a fence post or mucked out a barn or pulled a drowning woman from a river. But they were warm and real, and holding his like she had no intention of letting go. This is a mistake, he said. Probably. I'm going to mess it up. So will I. Lily's going to get hurt if this doesn't work out. Then we'll make sure it works out. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise to try. Ethan closed his eyes, felt the weight of her hand in his, felt 3 years of carefully maintained distance collapsing. One day at a time, he said finally. What? That's all I can give you. One day at a time. No promises about tomorrow. No planning next month or next year. Just today. Vivian smiled. I'll take it. You're going to regret this. Let me worry about my regrets. Lily's voice floated out from inside. Are you kissing yet? Vivian laughed. Ethan felt his face heat. Your daughter is relentless, Vivian said. Told you. Does she always? Yes, always. Vivian squeezed his hand. Good. Someone needs to push you. Yes. They stood there in the fading afternoon light, still holding hands, both terrified and hopeful, and having no idea what came next. Inside, Lily was singing off-key again. The next Sunday, Vivian brought painting supplies. Real ones, canvases and brushes and paints in colors Lily couldn't name. They set up in the backyard, Lily between them, all three of them making a mess. You're supposed to paint on the canvas, Ethan said, watching Lily smear blue paint across her arms. This is more fun. This is going to be impossible to clean up. That's what baths are for, Dad. Vivian was already covered in paint too. Red on her hands, yellow on her jeans, green somehow in her hair. She looked nothing like the CEO who'd almost run him off the road months ago. She looked happy. What are you painting? Lily asked her. Vivian turned her canvas around. It was the farmhouse, rendered in broad strokes and autumn colors. Not perfect, not polished, just real. It's home, she said simply. Lily nodded like that made perfect sense. I'm painting a dragon. That looks more like a blob, Ethan said. It's a dragon blob. They're rare. Can't argue with that. They painted until the sun started setting. Lily's dragon blob evolved into something that might have been a dinosaur. Ethan gave up on his attempt at the barn and just painted random shapes. Vivian added details to her farmhouse. Chickens in the yard, smoke from the chimney, 3 figures on the porch. When they finally packed up, all 3 of them were covered in paint and grinning like idiots. Bath time, Ethan announced. Lily groaned but didn't argue. She hugged Vivian, leaving paint smears on her shirt, and ran inside. Ethan and Vivian stood in the backyard, surrounded by drying canvases and discarded brushes. Thank you, Vivian said. For what? For letting me stay. You kind of forced your way in. I mean for letting me stay anyway. Ethan looked at her farmhouse painting, still drying on the easel. The 3 figures on the porch were clearly him, Vivian, and Lily.
You're really not leaving, he said. I'm really not leaving. What about your company? I promoted my COO to co-CEO. He's handling day-to-day operations. I check in twice a week, make the big decisions, and otherwise stay out of his way. Just like that? Just like that. Turns out when you build a good team, they don't actually need you micromanaging every detail. What are you going to do with all that free time? Vivian smiled. I bought a house. Ethan stared at her. What? In town, 3 blocks from the library. It needs work, but it's mine. You bought a house. Here. I told you I wasn't leaving. I thought you meant... I don't know what I thought you meant, but not buying a house? Too much? Way too much. Should I return it? Ethan wanted to say yes. Wanted to tell her she was moving too fast, assuming too much, planning a future he hadn't agreed to. But looking at her standing in his backyard covered in paint, smiling like she'd just made the best decision of her life, he couldn't do it. Show me, he said instead. What? The house. Show me. Vivian's smile got bigger. Really? Before I change my mind. She grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the Mercedes. They drove into town, Lily singing in the back seat, both of them still covered in paint. Vivian parked in front of a small Victorian house that had clearly seen better days. The porch sagged. The paint was peeling. One of the shutters hung at an angle. It's a disaster, Ethan said. It's got good bones. It's got termites, probably. I had it inspected. No termites. The porch is falling off. You could fix it. He looked at her. Is that why you bought it, so I'd fix it? I bought it because it felt right. The fixing it part is just a bonus. Lily pressed her face against the car window. Can we go inside? Not yet. I don't get keys until next week. What's inside? 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen that needs updating, hardwood floors under the carpet, a backyard with an old apple tree. Can I have my own room? Lily asked. Ethan turned around. Lily, What? Vivian has 3 bedrooms. That's one for her, one for guests, and one for me. You have a room at our house. I could have 2 rooms. That's not how it works. Lily crossed her arms. How does it work? Ethan looked at Vivian for help. She was biting her lip, clearly trying not to laugh. Your dad and I are still figuring things out, Vivian said carefully. But if we figure them out right, then yes. You could have a room here too. So I'd have 2 houses? Something like that. That's so cool. Ethan rubbed his temples. This conversation is moving too fast. You said to show you the house, Vivian pointed out. I didn't say to start planning room arrangements. I'm not planning, I'm just hoping. Yes, hoping. Lily started listing what she wanted in her potential second room. Ethan sat in the front seat, looking at the disaster of a house Vivian had bought, and felt the future rearranging itself around him whether he was ready or not. The next few weeks blurred together. Vivian got her keys. Ethan helped her move in furniture she'd ordered from somewhere expensive. They discovered the kitchen sink leaked, 2 windows wouldn't open, and the furnace made sounds like it was dying. Ethan fixed what he could, called professionals for what he couldn't, spent more time at Vivian's house than his own some days. Lily loved it. She picked out paint colors for her potential room, drew pictures of how she'd arrange furniture, started keeping toys there even though she didn't officially live there. And slowly, without Ethan quite realizing when it happened, Vivian became part of their lives in a way he couldn't imagine undoing. She drove Lily to school when Ethan had to fix the broken tractor. She learned to make grilled cheese the way Lily liked it. She sat at their kitchen table doing work on her laptop while Lily did homework beside her. She fit. That was the terrifying part. She fit so well it was like she'd always been there. Dad? Lily asked one night at dinner. Yeah? Is Vivian your girlfriend? Ethan nearly choked on his water. What? Becca says when grown-ups spend all their time together and hold hands sometimes, that means they're boyfriend and girlfriend. Becca talks too much. Is she wrong? Ethan looked at Vivian, who was watching him with barely concealed amusement. It's complicated, honey. That means yes, Lily told Vivian confidently. Does it? Vivian asked. That's what Becca says. Becca is a relationship expert now? Ethan asked. She watches a lot of TV. After Lily went to bed, Vivian found Ethan on the porch. He was staring at the dark fields, hands wrapped around a beer he wasn't drinking. "So," she said, sitting beside him, "am I your girlfriend?" "I don't know. Are you?" "You're asking me?" "You're the one who bought a house here." "Fair point." She took the beer from his hands, sipped it, made a face. "This is terrible." "I know." "Why do you drink it?" "Because it's beer, and sometimes I need beer." Same logic as the coffee. Exactly. She handed it back. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to crickets and the distant sound of a truck on the main road. "I'm scared," Ethan said finally. "I know. Every time I start to relax, I remember what it felt like when Sarah died, how the world just stopped and nothing made sense anymore." "I'm not going to die, Ethan." "You can't promise that." "No, but I can promise I'm not sick. I'm healthy. I'm careful. I look both ways before crossing the street now." Despite himself, Ethan smiled. "You learned your lesson about country roads." "I learned a lot of lessons." She leaned against him, including that sometimes the scariest thing is also the right thing. "Is this right?" "Feels right to me." Ethan put his arm around her, pulling her closer. She was warm and solid and real. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Me too." They sat there until the beer went flat and the crickets quieted and the moon rose over the fields. Then they went inside, checking on Lily together before Vivian headed home to her falling-apart Victorian. At the door, she turned back. "For what it's worth, I like being your girlfriend." "Who said you were my girlfriend?" "Becca, and Becca is very wise. Becca is 6. So is Lily, and she's brilliant." Wow. Ethan kissed her then. Just a brief press of lips, nothing dramatic. But it felt like crossing a line he couldn't uncross. When he pulled back, Vivian was smiling. "About time," she said. "Shut up. You shut up. Very mature. You started it." She kissed him again, longer this time, and Ethan felt the last of his resistance crumble completely. 2 months passed, then 3. Winter arrived with snow that buried the fields and turned everything white and quiet. Vivian's house started looking less like a disaster and more like a home. Lily's potential room got painted. The kitchen sink stopped leaking. The furnace stopped making death sounds. And somewhere in all of it, Ethan stopped thinking of Vivian as temporary. She was there for Christmas morning, watching Lily open presents. There for New Year's, falling asleep on his couch before midnight. There for every small moment that made up a life. But in early January, everything changed. Vivian's phone rang during breakfast. She glanced at the screen and her face went pale. "I have to take this." She stepped outside. Ethan watched through the window as she paced the porch, one hand pressed to her forehead, talking fast. When she came back in, she looked shaken. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked. "The board called an emergency meeting. There's a hostile takeover attempt. They need me in Chicago tomorrow." The words hit like cold water. "Tomorrow?" "There's a flight at 6 a.m. If I leave now, I can make it." "For how long?" "I don't know. A week? Maybe 2? Lily looked up from her cereal. "You're leaving?" "Just for a little while, sweetheart." "But you said you weren't leaving." I'm not. I have to fix something at work." "You said work didn't matter anymore." Vivian knelt beside her chair. "It doesn't. Not like you do. But some people are trying to hurt my company, and I need to stop them." "Why?" "Because 200 people work for me. They have families, bills to pay, kids like you. And if I don't fix this, they might lose their jobs." Lily processed this. "When are you coming back?" "As soon as I can." "Promise?" "I promise. Lily hugged her hard. Vivian held on for a long moment, then stood up and looked at Ethan. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You have responsibilities." "I don't want to go." "I know." "I'll call every day." "Okay." She grabbed her coat, her keys, stopped at the door. "Ethan, go. Fix it. Come back." "I will. I promise." She left. The house felt empty immediately. That night, Lily asked when Vivian was coming home. "Soon," Ethan said. "How soon?" "I don't know, honey. What if she doesn't come back?" "She will." "How do you know?" Ethan didn't have a good answer, so he just held his daughter and hoped he was right.
The first 3 days, Vivian called twice a day. Morning before Lily left for school, evening before bed. She sounded tired on every call, distracted, like she was in 3 different places at once and none of them were here. "How's it going?" Ethan asked on day 4. "It's a nightmare. The investors are circling like sharks. My co-CEO is panicking. Half the board wants me to sell, and the other half wants me to fight, and nobody can agree on anything." "But Bob, what do you want to do?" "What?" Silence. Then, "I don't know. I should want to fight. This company is everything I built, but all I keep thinking about is Lily's face when I left." "She's okay." "Is she?" She asks about you constantly, but she's okay." More silence. "I miss you both so much it physically hurts." "We miss you too. I'm trying to get back. I swear I'm trying. But every time I think I've solved one problem, 3 more show up. Just do what you have to do." What if what I have to do keeps me here for weeks? Ethan didn't have an answer for that. They said goodbye and he stood in his kitchen feeling the distance between Kansas and Chicago like a physical weight. Lily appeared in the doorway, holding the painting Vivian had made of the farmhouse. "When's she coming home?" "Soon, honey. You keep saying soon. Because it's true." "What if she stays in Chicago?" "She won't." "How do you know?" "Because she promised." Lily studied the painting. "Promises don't always work." The words hit harder than they should have. Ethan knelt down to her level. "Where'd you hear that?" "Well, Becca's dad promised to take her to the zoo. Then he didn't." "That's different." "How?" "Because Vivian keeps her promises. She said she'd come back and she will." "But what if the bad people in Chicago make her stay? They can't make her do anything. Then why isn't she here?" Ethan pulled Lily into a hug. She was getting too big for this, already complaining about being treated like a baby, but she didn't pull away, just pressed her face into his shoulder and held on. "Sometimes grown-ups have to do hard things," he said quietly. "Things that take longer than we want. But that doesn't mean Vivian stopped caring about us. I want her to come home." "Me too. That night, after Lily finally fell asleep, Ethan sat on the porch with a beer he actually drank this time. The fields were dark and empty. Vivian's house sat 3 blocks away in town, all the lights off, waiting for her to come back. He'd started to believe this could work, that they could build something real, that maybe, just maybe, he could be happy again without feeling like he was betraying Sarah's memory. Now he wasn't sure of anything. His phone buzzed, a text from Vivian. "Still awake?" He called her instead of texting back. She answered on the first ring. "Hey," she said, and her voice sounded raw. "Rough day?" "The board voted to accept the takeover offer. I'm outvoted 6-4. Ethan's stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" "It means if I can't find a way to stop this in the next week, I lose the company. Everything I built for 15 years just gone. I'm sorry. Are you?" The question caught him off guard. "What? Are you sorry? Or are you relieved?" "Why would I be relieved?" "Because if I lose the company, I have no reason to stay in Chicago. I can come home and this nightmare is over." "That's not..." "Vivian, I don't want you to lose your company. Don't you? Even a little bit?" Ethan stood up, pacing the porch. "That's not fair." I'm not trying to be fair, I'm trying to be honest. Part of me wants to just let it go. Sign the papers, take the payout, walk away from all of it and come back to you and Lily and pretend none of this matters. It does matter. Does it? More than you? More than her? It matters to 200 people who work for you, to the families who depend on those jobs. You said that yourself. I know what I said. She sounded close to tears. But I'm so tired, Ethan. Tired of fighting. Tired of caring about quarterly reports and investor relations and all the things that used to feel important but just feel empty now. So what are you going to do? I don't know. I have to decide by Friday. Either find a way to block the takeover or accept the offer and move on. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me to come home, to forget about Chicago and the company and all of it, to choose you. Ethan closed his eyes. I
can't do that. Why not? Because that's not a choice. That's running away. And you're not someone who runs. How do you know? Maybe I've been running my whole life. No, you've been building. And yeah, maybe you got so focused on building that you forgot why you started. But that doesn't mean you should just walk away from it. Vivian was quiet for a long moment. What if I can't do both? What if it's Chicago or Kansas, but not both? Then you have to choose, but make the choice for the right reasons. Not because you're tired or scared or trying to prove something to me. I'm not trying to prove anything. Aren't you? You bought a house here. You uprooted your entire life. And now when it gets hard, you want to burn the bridge completely so there's no going back. That's not what I'm doing, isn't it? More silence. Then quieter. Maybe. Vivian, I want you here. Lily wants you here, but not because you gave up everything else. I want you here because you chose to be, not because you didn't have anywhere else to go. I hate that you're right. I'm not right. I'm just saying what I think. It's the same thing. She took a shaky breath. I should go. I have a meeting at 7. Okay. Ethan? Yeah? I'm still coming back, no matter what happens with the company. I'm coming back. I know. Do you? Really? He thought about it. About the last few months. About the way she'd shown up every Sunday, even when he'd pushed her away. About the house she'd bought. About the promises she'd made to Lily. Yeah, he said. I do. Okay. She sounded steadier now. I'll call tomorrow. We'll be here. She hung up. Ethan stood on his porch, staring at nothing, trying to believe his own words. The next week was harder. Vivian's calls got shorter, more distracted. She was sleeping 4 hours a night, living on coffee and stress, trying to find a way to save something she wasn't even sure she wanted to save anymore. Lily stopped asking when Vivian was coming home, started drawing pictures without showing them to anyone. Ethan caught her talking to the painting one night, telling Vivian about school like she was actually there. It broke his heart. On Thursday, Morrison stopped by with a casserole from his wife. Heard your girl's still in Chicago. She's dealing with business stuff. Business stuff that's taking 3 weeks? It's complicated. Morrison sat at the kitchen table uninvited. You know what Sarah used to say? Don't. She said you had a gift for picking complicated women. Despite everything, Ethan almost smiled. Sarah wasn't complicated. Sarah had cancer at 28 and still made you laugh every day. That's pretty damn complicated. What's your point? My point is that complicated isn't bad. It just means the thing's worth fighting for. Morrison stood up. Don't let her go without a fight, Ethan. I've seen the way she looks at you, the way you look at her. That's not something you find twice in a lifetime. She's the one who left. She left to save people's jobs. That's not the same as leaving you. After Morrison was gone, Ethan heated up the casserole and called Lily for dinner. They ate in silence, both of them picking at food they didn't want. Dad? Lily said finally. Yeah? If Vivian doesn't come back, will you be sad? Ethan's throat tightened. She's coming back. But if she doesn't, I'd be sad. Yeah, me too. Lily pushed her food around. I like having her here. It feels like we're a real family again. We are a real family, just you and me. I know. But with Vivian, it's different. Better. Yeah, Ethan said quietly. It is better. That night, Vivian didn't call. Ethan tried her phone 3 times, straight to voicemail. He told himself she was busy, told himself there was a reasonable explanation, told himself not to panic. By midnight, he was panicking. At 1 a.m., his phone finally rang. Where were you? He asked without preamble. Vivian's voice was flat, exhausted. Negotiating. For 8 hours? For 12. We found a solution. Sort of. What kind of solution? The kind where I agree to step down as CEO in exchange for blocking the takeover. My co-CEO takes over full-time. I stay on the board. The company survives. Everyone keeps their jobs. Ethan sat down slowly. You're giving up your company. I'm saving it.
There's a difference. Is there?
I don't know anymore. I'm too tired to know. She paused. I'm coming home. When?
Tomorrow. I'm booking a flight as soon as the papers are signed. Relief flooded through him. Okay. Okay? That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say?
I don't know.
Maybe that you're happy I chose you, that you're glad I'm walking away from everything I built, that this sacrifice means something. Ethan heard the edge in her voice, the exhaustion bleeding into anger.
Are you looking for permission to be angry at me? Maybe. Are you going to give it to me?
No. Because I didn't ask you to give up anything. You made this choice yourself.
For you.
For yourself, Ethan shot back. You said it yourself. You don't want that life anymore. So yeah, you're using us as an excuse. But this is what you wanted. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell you the truth? You've been looking for a way out since the day you almost drowned. The takeover just gave you an excuse to stop pretending you wanted to stay. Silence, long and heavy. Then quietly, maybe you're right. I usually am. Don't be smug. Too late. A sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. I'm terrified I'm making a mistake. You probably are. That's supposed to make me feel better? No, it's supposed to make you feel normal. Everyone makes mistakes. You'll make more. So will I. That's life. What if I regret this?
Then you'll deal with it. Figure it out. Adapt. That's what you do. More silence. Then, I love you.
The words hung in the air. Ethan realized she'd never said them directly before. Not like this. Not without cushioning them with other words.
I love you too, he said.
Really? Really?
Even though I'm a mess? Especially because you're a mess. That doesn't make sense. Sure it does. Perfect people are boring. She laughed for real this time.
I'm exhausted and stressed and I haven't slept in 3 days and you're making me laugh. How do you do that? Natural talent. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll be here. Ethan? Yeah? Thank you for not making this easy, for telling me the truth even when I didn't want to hear it. That's what I'm here for.
I thought you were here to make terrible coffee and fix things badly. I multitask. She hung up laughing. Ethan sat in his dark kitchen, holding his phone, feeling something settle in his chest that had been restless for weeks. She was coming home. The next evening, Ethan and Lily waited on the porch. Lily had changed her outfit 3 times, finally settling on her favorite dress, the purple one with flowers that she wore to everything important. Is that her? She asked for the 10th time, pointing at headlights on the main road. I don't know, honey. What if she changed her mind? She didn't. How do you know?
Because she said she was coming and she keeps her promises. The headlights turned into their driveway. The black Mercedes. Ethan felt Lily tense beside him, vibrating with anticipation. The car stopped. Vivian got out slowly, like she was stiff from the flight. She looked exhausted, pale. Her business clothes were rumpled. Lily didn't care. She launched herself off the porch and ran. Vivian caught her, stumbling a little, holding on tight. You came back, Vilma, Lily said into her shoulder. I promised, didn't I? Promises don't always work. Mine do. Ethan walked down to them. Vivian looked up at him, over Lily's head, her eyes red-rimmed but bright. Hey, she said. Hey? I'm home. I can see that. I can't. Are you going to say welcome back or just stand there? I'm considering my options. Consider faster. He kissed her. Lily made a sound of protest between them. You're squishing me. They separated, both laughing. Vivian looked around, at the farmhouse, the barn, the field stretching into darkness. I signed everything this morning. It's official. I'm no longer CEO. How do you feel? Terrified, relieved, free. All of it at once. That's normal. Is it? No idea, but it sounds good. She laughed, then swayed a little. Ethan caught her elbow. When did you last eat? I had pretzels on the plane. That's not food. It was food-shaped. Come on, I made dinner. You can cook? Don't get excited. It's spaghetti from a jar. Sounds perfect, right? They went inside. Lily talked non-stop through dinner, filling Vivian in on everything she'd missed. The new girl in class, the spelling test she'd aced, the fact that Dad had burned toast twice. Vivian listened like it was the most important information in the world. After Lily went to bed, Ethan and Vivian sat on the couch. She changed into jeans and one of his sweatshirts that was too big on her. "This is real now," she said quietly. "What is?" "This. Us. I don't have work as an excuse to run back to Chicago. I don't have emergencies to handle. It's just this. Scared. Terrified. Me too." She looked at him. "Really?" I've been terrified since the day you almost ran me off the road. That was almost 6 months ago. I'm aware. You've been scared for 6 months and you didn't say anything? I'm saying it now." Vivian shifted closer, tucking herself against his side. "What are you scared of?" "That you'll realize this life is boring, that small towns and fixing fences isn't enough, that you'll miss the excitement and the power and all the things that made you successful. What if I told you this is enough? That sitting here in your terrible sweatshirt eating jarred spaghetti is the happiest I've been in years." I'd say you're still exhausted and not thinking clearly. Always so romantic. Just honest. She was quiet for a moment. "I'm scared too, that I'll mess this up. That I don't know how to be in a relationship because I've spent 15 years married to my work. That Lily will realize I'm not her real mother and decide she doesn't want me around. That you'll wake up one day and realize you settled for someone who doesn't know how to make coffee or cook real food or do any of the normal things partners are supposed to do." "You think I know how to do those things? You make coffee every day. Terrible coffee. And cook dinner. From jars. You're not helping my point. My point is we're both disasters, so we'll be disasters together." Vivian tilted her head back to look at him. "Is that a proposal?" "What? No, I was just..." "Relax, I'm kidding." She paused. "Mostly." Ethan's heart was racing. "Vivian, I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm just saying that eventually we should probably talk about what this is, where it's going. It's going wherever we decide it goes." Very philosophical. "I try." She kissed him, slow and careful. When she pulled back, she was smiling. "I'm glad I crashed into that river." "That's a weird thing to be glad about. It brought me here. To you. To Lily. To this life I didn't know I needed. You almost died. I know, but if I hadn't, I'd still be in Chicago pretending to be happy. Pretending my life made sense. And now I'm here and I don't have to pretend anymore." Ethan pulled her closer. "You're staying." "I'm staying. No more leaving for emergencies. No more emergencies. I'm off the board by spring. After that, I'm just a major shareholder who collects dividend checks and tries to figure out what retired billionaires do with their time. You're 30 years old. You can't retire. Watch me." "What are you going to do all day?" I don't know. Learn to cook real food. Figure out coffee. Fix up my disaster of a house. Volunteer at the library. Spend time with you and Lily. Live. That simple? That's simple. Well, it wasn't simple. Nothing ever was. But sitting there with Vivian curled against him, listening to the quiet house, Ethan thought maybe simple was overrated anyway. The next few weeks fell into a new rhythm. Vivian enrolled in a cooking class at the community center and came home with increasingly edible results. She volunteered at Lily's school library, reading to first graders who loved her dramatic voices. She learned the names of everyone in town, shopped at the local grocery store, became a regular at the diner. She became part of the community in a way Ethan hadn't expected. Not as the billionaire CEO, just as Vivian, the woman who'd bought the falling apart Victorian, who asked Jim Hendricks for advice on her garden, who brought cookies to Morrison's wife and actually stayed to chat. But there were hard days too. Days when Vivian checked the stock market obsessively, watching her former company's numbers. Days when she got calls from her co-CEO asking questions she couldn't answer anymore. Days when she looked lost and uncertain and like she was second-guessing everything. On one of those days, Ethan found her crying in her kitchen. The house was still half-finished, boxes everywhere, paint samples on the walls, projects started and abandoned. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I don't know what I'm doing." "With what?" "Any of it. This house, this life.
I'm 30 years old and I gave up everything I built. And for what? To play house in Kansas? Ethan sat down beside her. Is that what you think this is? I don't know what to think anymore. I spent 15 years with a plan. Goals. Metrics. Ways to measure success. And now I'm just existing. And I don't know if I'm doing it right. There's no right way to exist. That's not helpful. It's true, though. Basa. Vivian wiped her eyes. What if I made a mistake? What if I should have stayed in Chicago and fought harder? What if I'm going to wake up in 5 years and realize I traded everything meaningful for nothing? Do you really think what you had was meaningful? It felt meaningful. That's not the same thing. How would you know? You gave up your career too. Maybe we're both just running away. The word stung because part of him wondered the same thing. Maybe we are. Or maybe we're running towards something better. Like what? I don't know. Happiness? Peace? A life that doesn't require constant achievement to feel valid? That sounds nice in theory. But I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to just be happy without accomplishing something. Ethan took her hand. Then we'll figure it out together. One day at a time. You always say that. Because it's all we can do. Vivian leaned against him. I'm sorry. I know I'm being difficult. You're not being difficult. You're being human. I thought I'd adjusted. Thought I was over the company and ready for this new life. But some days I miss it so much I can't breathe. So miss it. That's okay. Is it? Yeah. You spent 15 years building something. Of course you miss it. That doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. How do you know? Mas. I don't. But I know you're here. With me. With Lily. And that has to count for something. She was quiet for a long time. Then, it counts for everything. That's what scares me. What do you mean? I put all my worth into my company for so long, and now I'm putting it all into you and Lily. What if I'm just trading one obsession for another? Are we an obsession? You know what I mean. Ethan did know. He'd done the same thing after Sarah died. Poured everything into Lily and the farm because it was easier than dealing with grief. Easier than figuring out who he was without his wife. Maybe that's okay too, he said slowly. Maybe we're supposed to put our worth in the people we love. Maybe that's not an obsession. Maybe that's just life. Or maybe we're both broken and using each other to avoid dealing with our issues. Probably that too. Okay? Despite herself, Vivian laughed. We're a mess. The messiest. Think we'll figure it out? Eventually. Or we'll just get better at being a mess together. She kissed him. I love you. Love you too. Even when I'm crying in my half-finished kitchen about existential crises, especially then. They sat there until the light faded and Lily called asking about dinner. Then they went back to Ethan's house and made spaghetti from a jar and pretended everything was fine. And most days it was. By March, Vivian had officially resigned from the board. Her company thrived under new leadership. The takeover attempt failed. 200 people kept their jobs. And Vivian kept her promise. She stayed. Spring came slowly that year, melting the snow inch by inch until the fields turned green again and the creek ran high with runoff. Ethan stood at the fence line one April morning, watching Lily and Vivian plant a garden behind Vivian's house. They'd been arguing for 20 minutes about whether tomatoes needed more space than the seed packet recommended. The packet says 12 inches, Lily insisted. The internet says 18, Vivian countered. Since when do you trust the internet more than the packet? Since I Googled it 3 times and every source agreed. Maybe the internet is wrong. Maybe the packet is outdated. Ethan smiled, leaning against the post. They'd been doing this for weeks now, bickering like they'd known each other forever, instead of less than a year. Vivian had moved past the careful politeness she'd started with. Now she told Lily when she was being stubborn. Lily told Vivian when she was being ridiculous. They fought and made up and fought again like it was the most natural thing in the world, like family. Dad, Lily called. Tell Vivian the packet is right. I'm staying out of this one. That's not helpful. Wasn't trying to be helpful. Vivian looked up, dirt on her hands and her jeans, hair escaping from a ponytail.
She'd stopped wearing expensive clothes months ago. Now she dressed like everyone else in town, practical, comfortable, occasionally paint-stained. "Your daughter is impossible," she said. "Tell me something I don't know." "I heard that," Lily said. They compromised at 15 inches. Ethan watched them work, their heads bent together over the small garden plot, and felt something settle in his chest that had been unsettled since Sarah died. Not completion exactly, just rightness. That evening, after Lily went to bed, Vivian found him on the porch. Their porch now. She'd officially moved in 3 weeks ago, her Victorian house rented to a young couple from 2 towns over. It had been Ethan's suggestion. Vivian's house was bigger, but Lily's whole life was here. Her room, her routines, her memories of her mother. Vivian had agreed without argument, packing up the half-finished renovation and moving into Ethan's farmhouse like she'd always belonged there. "Penny for your thoughts," she said, settling beside him. "That's a terrible exchange rate." "Fine, $1 for your thoughts." "Still terrible." She elbowed him gently. "Just tell me what you're thinking." Ethan took a breath. "I want to marry you." Vivian went very still. "What?" "I want to marry you. Not right now, not tomorrow, but eventually, soon, whenever you're ready." "Is this a proposal?" "More like a statement of intent." "That's the worst proposal I've ever heard." "It's not a proposal. It's I don't know what it is. I'm bad at this." Vivian was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. "You want to marry me?" "Yeah." "Why?" "What do you mean? Why?" "I mean, what made you think about this right now? We were planting tomatoes this morning, and now you want to get married." Ethan tried to find the words. "I watched you with Lily today, arguing about vegetables like it mattered, like you'd been doing it her whole life. And I realized I want you to do that forever, not as my girlfriend, not as the woman who lives here, as my wife, as Lily's." He stopped. "I don't know what the right word is. She has a mother, had a mother, but you're something important, and I want that to be official." Vivian's eyes were bright. "You're really bad at this." "I know, like spectacularly terrible. Are you going to answer or just insult me? Can I do both?" "Vivian?" She kissed him, long and thorough. When she pulled back, she was smiling. "Yes." "Yes, what?" "Yes, I'll marry you, eventually, soon, whenever we're ready." "Really? Did you think I'd say no?" "I thought you might need time to think about it." I've been thinking about it since Christmas. I just didn't want to pressure you." Ethan blinked. "You've been thinking about marrying me for 4 months and didn't say anything? You spent 6 months being scared and didn't say anything. We're both terrible at communication." "Fair point." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Vivian asked, "Should we tell Lily?" "Not yet. Let's figure out the details first." "What details?" "I don't know. When? Where? How? Very organized. I'm winging it. I can tell." She leaned against him, and Ethan wrapped his arm around her, feeling the weight of what he'd just done settling over him. Not regret, just awareness. He'd asked someone to marry him, to be part of his life permanently, to be Lily's family. It should have felt scary. Instead, it just felt right. 2 weeks later, Morrison stopped by with news. "Jim Hendricks is selling his property." Ethan looked up from the tractor he was pretending to fix. "The land to the east?" "All 120 acres. His kids don't want to farm and he's tired of doing it alone." "Good for him." "Thought you might be interested." "In buying it? With what money?" Morrison shrugged. "Vivian's got money." "Vivian's money is Vivian's money." "You're getting married, aren't you? That makes it both of your money." "Who told you we're getting married?" "Yeah. Small town. People talk." "Also, you've been looking at rings online, and Jim's daughter works at the jewelry store in the next county over." Ethan sighed. "I hate this town sometimes." "No, you don't." Morrison settled against the barn. "Seriously, though, you two thinking about expanding?" "I don't know what we're thinking. We haven't talked about the future beyond, having one." "Maybe you should, because that land isn't going to stay available long." After Morrison left, Ethan found Vivian in the kitchen making dinner. Actual dinner, not from a jar. She'd gotten good at cooking over the winter. Not great, but good enough that most meals were edible. Morrison says Jim's selling his land, he said. I heard. How did you hear? Mrs. Patterson told me at the library. Apparently everyone knows. Everyone knows everything in this town. It's charming. She stirred something on the stove. Are you interested? In the land? I don't know. It's a lot of money. I have a lot of money. That's your money. Vivian turned to look at him. We're getting married. What's mine is yours. That's not how I see it. How do you see it? Ethan struggled for words. You earned that money, spent 15 years building a company. I can't just take it. You're not taking it. I'm offering it. It's the same thing. It's really not. She set down the spoon. Ethan, I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. Sitting in accounts, earning interest, doing nothing useful. Why shouldn't we use some of it to build something here? Because it feels like cheating. Cheating at what? I don't know. Life? Vivian laughed. Vivian, that's the most ridiculous thing you've ever said. I'm serious. I walked away from corporate life because I didn't want to be that person anymore. The person who measures success in money. And now I'm supposed to just use your money to buy land I couldn't afford otherwise? You're not using my money. We're using our money. There's a difference. Is there? She moved closer, taking his hands. Listen to me. I didn't work for 15 years to let the money sit in a bank. I worked so I could eventually do what I wanted. Be free. Make choices that mattered. And this matters. You matter. Lily matters. Building a life here matters. If buying that land helps us do that, then that's what the money is for. I don't want you to think I'm with you for your money. You jumped in a river before you knew I had money. I think we're past that concern. Ike. Still nothing. She squeezed his hands. I love you. I want to build a life with you. And I want to do it right. Not scraping by. Not just surviving. Actually thriving. Let me help make that happen. Ethan looked at her. This woman who'd given up everything to be here, who'd chosen him and Lily over billions of dollars and power and prestige, who was now asking him to let her invest in their future. Okay, he said finally. Okay, sport. We'll talk to Jim. See what he wants for the land. Make a decision together. Vivian smiled. Together. I like that. They bought the land in May, 120 acres of prime farmland that Ethan had no idea what to do with. Vivian suggested hiring help. Ethan resisted for a week before admitting she was right. They hired 2 local guys who needed work, started planning what to plant, began the slow process of turning a small farm into something bigger. And somewhere in all of it, Ethan proposed properly. It was a Saturday in early June. He'd taken Lily and Vivian to the creek, the same spot where they'd hunted for frogs that first Sunday. Lily was splashing in the water, completely oblivious to what was about to happen. Ethan knelt beside Vivian on the bank, pulled out the ring he'd been carrying for a week, waiting for the right moment. Vivian Blake. She turned, saw the ring, and her hand flew to her mouth. I'm still terrible at this, Ethan said, but I love you. I love the life we're building. I love watching you argue with Lily about vegetables and burn dinner and try to fix things you have no business fixing. I love that you chose us over everything else. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice. Tears were streaming down Vivian's face. You already have. Is that a yes? That's a yes. He slid the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. She kissed him, both of them laughing and crying and completely forgetting about Lily, until she shouted, Did you just get engaged? They broke apart. Lily was standing in the creek, water dripping from her clothes, eyes wide. Yeah, Ethan said. We did. Does this mean Vivian's going to be my mom? Ethan looked at Vivian. They talked about this, about what to call her, about how to navigate the complicated reality of a child who'd lost her mother and found someone else. I'm going to be family.
Vivian said carefully. I can't replace your mom. Nobody can. But I can love you and be here for you and be whatever you need me to be. Lily thought about this. Can I call you Mom? Vivian's voice broke. If you want to. I want to. She ran out of the creek and crashed into them both, all three of them ending up in a wet, laughing pile on the bank. The ring caught the sunlight. Lily kept asking to see it. Vivian kept crying and pretending she wasn't, and Ethan felt something he hadn't felt since before Sarah got sick. Complete happiness. Not complicated by grief or fear or uncertainty. Just pure, simple joy. They were married in August, in the backyard of the farmhouse, surrounded by everyone they knew. Morrison officiated. Lily was the flower girl and took her job so seriously she counted each petal she dropped. Mrs. Patterson cried through the whole ceremony. Jim Hendricks gave Vivian away since her own father was long gone. It was small and simple and nothing like the wedding Vivian probably could have had if she'd married someone in her old life. No designer dress, no expensive venue, no hundreds of guests, just them, their people, their home. When Morrison pronounced them married, Lily cheered louder than anyone. Vivian laughed through her kiss. Ethan held on to her and thought about how impossible this would have seemed a year ago. The reception lasted until midnight, dancing in the grass, too much food, Jerry Hoskins getting drunk and singing karaoke badly, Lily falling asleep on a blanket while the adults talked and laughed and celebrated. Later, after everyone left and Lily was in bed and the yard was a mess they'd clean up tomorrow, Ethan and Vivian sat on the porch. She'd changed into jeans. He'd lost his tie hours ago. Her ring caught the moonlight. Mrs. Carter, he said. I kept my name. Mrs. Blake Carter? Oh, just Blake. Less confusing for business stuff. You don't do business stuff anymore. Habit. She leaned against him. Best day of my life. Better than closing your first billion-dollar deal? So much better, it's not even close. You're going to miss it eventually. The business, the power, the excitement. Maybe, but I'll have this instead. And this is better. Ethan wanted to believe her, wanted to trust that this life was enough. But part of him still worried that one day she'd wake up and realize what she'd given up. As if reading his thoughts, Vivian said, Stop it. Stop what? Worrying that I'm going to regret this. I won't. I don't. This is what I want. How do you know? Yeah, heck. Because I spent 15 years chasing something I thought would make me happy. Money, success, recognition. And I got all of it, and I was miserable. And then I almost died, and you saved me, and I found something I wasn't even looking for. What's that? Purpose. Real purpose. Not the kind that comes from quarterly reports and board meetings. The kind that comes from loving people and being loved back. From building something that matters not because it's profitable, but because it's real. She turned to look at him. You asked me once why I kept coming back. I said it was because I couldn't forget you. But that wasn't the whole truth. I kept coming back because for the first time in my life, I felt like I mattered for who I was, not what I could do or how much I was worth. You didn't care about my money or my company or my success. You just cared about me. I did almost let you drown out of spite, Ethan pointed out. But you didn't. You jumped in. And you kept jumping in, over and over, even when I gave you every reason not to. That's why I'm here. That's why I'll always be here. Ethan pulled her closer. I'm glad you crashed into that river. That's what I said. I know, but I mean it now. I'm glad all of it happened. The bridge, the drowning, the hospital, all of it. Because it brought you here. To middle of nowhere, Kansas. To home. Yeah, Vivian said softly. To home. They sat there until the stars came out, talking about nothing and everything. About the land they'd bought. About Lily starting first grade in a few weeks. About the life they were building together. And for the first time since Sarah died, Ethan let himself believe in the future. The years that followed weren't easy. There were arguments about money and parenting and whose turn it was to feed the chickens. There were days when Vivian missed her old life so badly she cried. Days when Ethan retreated into himself and pushed everyone away. Days when Lily acted out, testing the boundaries of their new family structure. But there were good days too, more good days than bad. Birthdays and holidays and ordinary Tuesdays that felt special just because they were together. Watching Lily grow from a 6-year-old who hunted frogs into a teenager who rolled her eyes at everything but still hugged them both goodnight. Watching the farm expand from 40 acres to 160. Watching the town embrace Vivian not as the billionaire who bought a house, but as the woman who volunteered at the library and brought cookies to bake sales and showed up when people needed help. Ethan taught Vivian to fix tractors. She taught him to make decent coffee. They both learned that marriage was work, constant, exhausting, worthwhile work, and that love wasn't a feeling you had once and kept forever. It was a choice you made every day. Some days the choice was easy. Some days it was hard. But they kept choosing it anyway. On their 5th anniversary, they stood in the same spot by the creek where Ethan had proposed. Lily was 11 now, too old for frog hunting but still young enough to humor them when they asked her to come along. "This is where it all started," Vivian said. "Technically, it started when you almost killed me on the road," Ethan pointed out. "I prefer to think it started when you pulled me from the river." "I prefer to think it started when you showed up with that terrible casserole. The casserole was fine. It was dry. You ate 3 servings. I was being polite." Lily groaned. "You guys are embarrassing." "We're married," Vivian said. "We're supposed to be embarrassing. Not this embarrassing." Ethan laughed, pulling both of them close. Lily protested, but didn't pull away. Vivian leaned into him, her hand finding his. And standing there by the creek where everything had changed, Ethan thought about how strange life was. How one moment, one decision to jump into freezing water to save a stranger could change everything. How the things that seemed like disasters could turn into blessings if you were brave enough to see them through. He'd lost Sarah. That grief would never completely fade. But he'd found Vivian, found a second chance at happiness he hadn't thought he deserved. And maybe that was the point. Maybe life wasn't about deserving or earning or achieving. Maybe it was just about showing up, doing the hard things, jumping into rivers even when you were scared, choosing love even when it hurt. Maybe success wasn't measured in dollars or deals or quarterly reports. Maybe it was measured in moments like this. A family standing by a creek on an ordinary Saturday. Nothing spectacular, nothing impressive, just real, just theirs. "What are you thinking about?" Vivian asked. Ethan looked at her, this woman who'd driven into his life like a storm and stayed like sunshine, who'd given up everything to be here, who chose him and Lily every single day. "I'm thinking about how lucky I am." "Lucky how?" "Lucky that you're a terrible driver." She elbowed him. "Romantic." "Lucky that you're stubborn enough to keep coming back when I pushed you away. Lucky that you saw something worth staying for in this place. In me." "It wasn't hard to see. It was for me. I spent 3 years convinced I was done, that I'd had my chance at happiness and lost it, and then you showed up and proved me wrong." Vivian's eyes got bright. "You showed up too. You saved me, not just from drowning, from a life that looked successful but felt empty. You gave me something to care about, someone to love, a reason to be more than just a CEO. You were always more than that. I didn't know that until I met you." Lily made a gagging sound. "You guys are being gross again." "Get used to it," Ethan said. "We're going to be gross for a long time." "Forever," Vivian added. "Ugh, I need new parents." But she was smiling when she said it, and when they started walking back toward the house, she took both their hands without being asked. That night, after Lily went to bed, Ethan found the painting Vivian had made their first Sunday together. The farmhouse with 3 figures on the porch. It hung in their bedroom now, slightly faded but still beautiful. "You knew," he said to Vivian. "Even then, you knew we'd end up here." "I hoped." "That's different from knowing. You painted us as a family before we were a family." "I painted what I wanted, what I'd been missing my whole life without realizing it." Ethan studied the painting, the broad strokes, the autumn colors, the 3 figures standing together like they belonged. "What do you think you would have done?" he asked. "If I hadn't let you keep coming back? If I'd told you to leave and stay gone?" Vivian was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. Gone back to Chicago, probably. Thrown myself into work. Convinced myself I was fine. And I would have been fine, technically. But I never would have been happy. Not like this. Sa I pasokol. Do you ever regret it? Giving up the company?" "Sometimes I miss parts of it. The challenge, the problem solving, the feeling of building something. But no, I don't regret it, because what I have now is better. It's real. It's mine in a way the company never was. She moved closer, taking his hand. I used to think success meant having more money, more power, more recognition. And then I realized that's just another kind of emptiness. Real success is having enough, being enough. And I have that now. I'm enough. This life is enough. You and Lily are more than enough. Ethan kissed her forehead. I love you. I love you too. Well, they stood there in the quiet house, looking at a painting made 5 years ago by a woman who'd hoped for something she barely understood, who'd taken a chance on a life she'd never imagined wanting, who'd chosen love over everything else and never looked back. And Ethan thought about all the choices that had led them here. His choice to jump in the river, Vivian's choice to keep coming back, their choice to try, to risk, to believe. Because that's what love was, really. Not a feeling, not a certainty. Just a choice you kept making until one day you looked up and realized you'd built something worth keeping, something real, something lasting, something true. The next morning, Ethan woke early and found Lily and Vivian already in the kitchen. Lily was doing homework at the table. Vivian was making breakfast, actual breakfast, not from a box, and humming something off-key. It was ordinary, unremarkable, the kind of moment you'd forget if you weren't paying attention. But Ethan paid attention, stood in the doorway, and watched his family exist together like it was the most natural thing in the world, like they'd always been this way. Vivian looked up and smiled. Morning. Morning. Want coffee? Is it good coffee or your coffee? Somewhere in between. I'll take it. She poured him a cup. It was actually decent. She'd finally figured out the right ratio of grounds to water. Lily looked up from her homework. Dad, can you help me with math? What kind of math? The hard kind. Ethan sat down beside her. Vivian brought over breakfast. They ate together, the three of them, working through math problems and planning their day and just being. And Ethan realized that this ordinary Saturday morning in a farmhouse in Kansas was everything he'd never known he wanted, everything he'd been too scared to hope for after Sarah died. He'd thought his story was over, thought he'd had his chance and lost it, thought happiness was something that happened once and never again. But he'd been wrong, because here he was, 5 years after pulling a stranger from a river, married to a woman who'd chosen small-town Kansas over billions of dollars, raising a daughter who had 2 mothers now, one in memory, one in reality. And somehow that felt right instead of wrong, building a life that mattered not because it was impressive, but because it was theirs. And maybe that was the real lesson, that success wasn't about achievement or recognition or measuring up to some external standard. It was about finding what mattered to you and holding on to it, about being brave enough to jump into rivers, about staying even when it was hard, about choosing love over fear every single day. It wasn't easy. It wasn't simple. It definitely wasn't smooth, but it was real. And real was better than perfect any day. Ethan looked at Vivian across the kitchen table. She was helping Lily with a math problem. Both of them bent over the worksheet, both of them arguing about the best way to solve it. And he thought about that terrifying moment in the river when he'd almost lost her, when the current had pulled them both under and he'd had to choose between saving himself and saving her. He'd chosen her, a stranger, someone who'd insulted his life and almost killed his daughter. And that choice had changed everything. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is save someone you barely know. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is let someone save you back. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that person becomes family. Not because it was easy, not because it was meant to be, but because you both chose it every day, over and over. Until one day you looked up and realized you'd built something beautiful out of what started as disaster. That was their story. A bridge collapse, a drowning, a rescue, and everything that came after. Not perfect, not smooth, but theirs. And in the end, that was all that mattered.